I never thought a Tuesday afternoon could feel like this, like the air itself was holding its breath. I sat on the edge of her worn leather sofa, my hands fidgeting with the zipper of my jacket, trying not to notice how her fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup. The sunlight came in at an angle that made her hair glow like spun copper, and I swore I could feel my heart racing in a way I hadn't in years. She looked up then, catching my gaze for just a moment longer than necessary. Her eyes were warm, sharp, and impossibly alive, seemed to measure me, weigh me, and maybe even forgive me all at once. I could barely speak. I wanted to say something, anything, but my voice seemed trapped somewhere between my chest and the tip of my tongue. "I didn't expect you today," she said finally, her voice calm but with a softness that made my stomach twist. I just thought I should stop by," I managed, swallowing hard. It was ridiculous. We weren't even dating, or maybe that was part of the problem. We'd skirted around this edge for months, a careful dance of coffee meetups, lingering glances, and conversations that always felt like they were meant for more than just small talk. She shifted slightly, her hand brushing mine as she set the cup down. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. The moment was fragile, suspended between the warmth of her living room and the words we weren't saying. I could feel her studying me, the subtle tilt of her head, the way her lips pressed together just slightly when she thought I wasn't looking. I've been thinking," she said, finally breaking the silence, though her tone didn't give anything away. "About choices." "About," she trailed off, as if searching for words that would hurt too much if spoken. My heart thudded. I knew what she meant before she said it, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. I'd made a choice months ago, a safe choice, a convenient choice, and it had gnawed at me ever since. "About her?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she leaned back, the sunlight catching the subtle lines of her face that made her real, human, breathtaking. I could see everything there, the strength, the fatigue, the hope, the disappointment, all in the way she looked at me. And then she said it, and it cut straight through me. "You chose her," she said, and the words hung between us like a storm cloud, heavy and undeniable. I felt the weight of every late-night conversation we'd avoided, every smile that lingered too long, every brush of her hand that left a memory on my skin. I opened my mouth to explain, to apologize, to plead, but the words refused to come. Her gaze didn't waver. She was calm, but the quiet force behind it made my chest tighten. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was something worse, truth. Truth I had tried to avoid. And then, the sound of the doorbell cut through the room like a sharp inhale. I froze. She froze. Our eyes met, and for a second, the air itself seemed to crack. Neither of us moved. I knew, even before I stood, that whatever, or whoever, was waiting outside would change everything. The doorbell echoed in my mind long after the sound faded. I didn't move immediately, couldn't. My eyes stayed locked on hers, tracing the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the way she always tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was thinking. I wanted to reach for her hand, to bridge the space between what I wanted and what I had allowed myself to believe was forbidden. She cleared her throat, finally breaking the silence. "It's nothing," she said softly, but her shoulders were tense, her eyes flicking toward the window as if to check the light. I knew that look. I'd seen it in photos, in memories she'd shared over coffee, the fleeting look of someone who had built walls around herself, who had loved and lost in ways that left her careful, guarded. I remembered the first time she'd told me about her divorce, how she'd lingered over the words, not from shame, but from the memory of hope she had once carried and lost. She'd never blamed anyone, not really, just described it with this quiet, aching honesty that made me want to protect her, even though I knew I couldn't. And me? I was 23, fumbling my way through college and part-time jobs, trying to sound older than I felt, trying to convince myself I could understand what it meant to carry that kind of history. I had loved before, yes, but none of it had burned like this. None of it had made me feel the sharp mix of awe and guilt that I felt whenever I looked at her. The age gap, it was there, unspoken, a silent measure of everything society might whisper about us. I caught myself imagining the judgment, the questions, the whispered "What are you thinking?" from anyone who knew. But inside this quiet apartment, with her mere presence a gravity I couldn't resist, none of that seemed to matter. She shifted slightly on the sofa, brushing her fingers against mine. It was accidental, I told myself. But the heat that shot through my hand said otherwise. My chest tightened, a mixture of exhilaration and fear. We both knew the risk, knew the edges of this attraction were sharp enough to cut. "I remember that summer," she murmured, her voice barely above the hum of the street outside. "The one before everything changed." My mind raced. I hadn't known her then, hadn't imagined this exact moment would exist between us, with the weight of years and choices pressing into our space. Yet somehow, she had opened a door to memory, to something softer, something private. I could feel it, a bridge forming in the space between us, fragile but real. I wanted to tell her everything, that I couldn't stop thinking about her, that I wanted to lean in and erase the distance. But I swallowed the words. Instead, I let my fingers rest lightly against hers, letting the warmth speak for me. Her hand twitched almost imperceptibly, but it stayed. In that silence, I realized we were both holding back, afraid, but unwilling to retreat. And in that quiet, suspended tension, our shared history, our unspoken desire, and our mutual caution all intertwined. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was standing on the edge of something forbidden. I felt like I was standing exactly where I was supposed to be. I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me like a physical thing. Her hand brushed mine again, this time longer, almost deliberately, and I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. We were sitting too close, I realized, and yet moving away felt impossible. The apartment felt smaller, the sunlight sharper, the quiet thicker. "I shouldn't," she started, her voice tight, faltering, as if she was arguing with herself. I could see it in the way her lips pressed together, the subtle tremor in her hands. "I shouldn't be," I leaned in without thinking, drawn toward her like gravity itself had shifted. She caught my gaze, eyes wide for a heartbeat, then lowered them. A laugh, soft and nervous, escaped her, and my chest clenched. I could feel everything I wanted in that tiny sound. The door clicked. We froze. I could almost hear our hearts synchronized in panic. Her ex-husband's voice, muffled but unmistakable, drifted from the hallway. He wasn't supposed to be home. I'd thought she was alone. The sudden intrusion yanked us both back into reality, the rules, the risk, the careful boundaries we had skirted so dangerously close. I have to go," she said, standing abruptly. Her hand slid from mine, leaving a trace of warmth that made me ache. I wanted to protest, to follow, to stay in the tension between us, but the sight of her panic-stricken eyes stopped me. I stayed on the sofa, silent, pretending to check my phone while my body screamed otherwise. The guilt hit me then, sharp, insistent. I knew she carried it too, the kind of guilt that comes from wanting something you're told you shouldn't. And yet, even as we pulled away, something had shifted. The air between us was charged, a current of unspoken words and half-made promises. "Are you staying for dinner?" Her voice was quieter now, a murmur behind the door, hesitant, almost pleading. I swallowed hard. I should have said no. I should have run. But something in me, some irrational, stubborn part, wanted to stay. To prove to myself that this was real even if forbidden. I heard her ex leave, or maybe it was a neighbor. The sound of a door shutting echoed like a bell in my chest. She came back into the room, smaller somehow, but her eyes found mine immediately. And in that instant, everything else, the age gap, the social rules, the looming guilt, melted into the space between us. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. I leaned closer, and she didn't pull back, though her breath hitched. My fingers brushed hers again, this time intentional. I could feel her pulse, could sense the restraint she was trying to hold on to slipping just a little. And then she did the most human thing she could. She laughed, soft, nervous, knowing. The tension between us hung heavier than ever, electric and fragile, a storm waiting to break. I wanted to kiss her, to cross the line, but neither of us moved. We just stayed there, suspended, two people caught between desire and consequence. And in that suspended moment, I knew this wasn't going to end quietly, or safely. The evening had fallen, but the room was still bright with the stubborn glow of the streetlights outside. I watched her across the kitchen, leaning against the counter, her fingers absently tracing the rim of a glass. Every movement was deliberate, every glance a message I wasn't sure I was ready to read. "You've been quiet all night," she said, finally breaking the silence, her voice soft, edged with something I couldn't name. A warning? A plea? Desire? I swallowed, trying to find words that wouldn't make everything worse. "Just thinking," I said, but my voice betrayed me. I was thinking of the way her hair caught the light, the curve of her shoulder, the sound of her laugh that haunted my dreams. She turned, and I saw it then, the flash of something I wasn't supposed to see, jealousy. Not mine, hers. Her eyes flicked to my phone, which I'd left on the table, messages flashing from someone else. Not her. I hadn't realized until that moment how much it mattered to her, how fragile this tension between us had become. "I saw that," she said quietly, but there was steel beneath the softness. "I know you're," she hesitated, the words stopping short, caught in the gravity between us. I could feel the vulnerability in her, the fear that I'd slip away like I had before, the way she always feared being second. I tried to explain, but my words tangled. There was no excuse that could justify the way my chest tightened at the sight of her, the way my thoughts circled back to her even when I tried not to. I wanted to reach for her, to tell her everything, but my hands froze midair. She stepped closer, and my breath caught. The distance between us disappeared in a heartbeat. Her presence was overwhelming, intoxicating, impossible to resist. My pulse hammered in my ears as I realized just how much I wanted her, needed her, even knowing how complicated, how wrong it could be. "You don't get to look at me like that," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "Not after everything." I didn't move. I couldn't. Every rule, every consequence, every fear was collapsing in that moment. My heart didn't care. My mind screamed, but my body leaned in. Her eyes held mine, wide and luminous, searching for something I wasn't sure I could give. And in that second, I knew she felt it too, the pull, the risk, the magnetic inevitability of it all. The tension was unbearable, charged like a wire about to snap. I could almost taste the confession waiting to escape my lips, the desire coiled tight in my chest. She shivered, and I knew it wasn't the cold. And then, the sound of a key turning in the lock froze us both. We didn't speak. We didn't move. My hand hovered in the space between us, hers mirrored mine, both of us suspended at the edge of something irreversible. The door clicked open. I could see the shadow stretch across the hallway, and in that instant, everything, the desire, the fear, the risk, became urgent, immediate. We were standing on the precipice. One step, one word, one touch, and nothing would ever be the same. The shadow at the door wasn't who I expected. My stomach dropped the moment I realized it, her ex. He was smiling, casual, but there was something in the set of his shoulders, the way his eyes lingered on her, that made my blood run cold. "You two working on something?" he asked, voice light but carrying an edge I couldn't ignore. Her face went pale. The delicate control she always maintained slipped, even if just a fraction. She opened her mouth to answer, then hesitated, swallowing whatever she was about to say. I could feel her panic radiating through the room. My heart thudded, caught in a mixture of protectiveness and fear. I wanted to step forward, to shield her with my body, to tell him, "No, stop," but the words stuck somewhere behind my teeth. Instead, I tried to appear calm, casual, anything to keep her from panicking further. "It's nothing," I said, forcing a smile. But it felt brittle. He raised an eyebrow. "Really? You don't look like nothing." "Feels like a lot." I glanced at her, and for a fleeting second, our eyes met. There was a question there, a silent plea, and I understood it immediately. She was scared, not of me, not of him, but of what was coming. And God, I wasn't sure how to respond without breaking something fundamental between us. She swallowed, stepping closer to me. Her hand brushed my arm, a small anchor in a storm I didn't yet understand. I could feel the tension in her body, the fight between fear and desire, restraint and longing. And I realized how dangerously close we had come to crossing a line that could ruin everything. I didn't expect you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but the tremor betrayed her. He tilted his head, smirk fading, suspicion creeping into his features. "You've been keeping secrets?" he asked. I felt a rush of heat to my face. The truth was right there, dangling in the space between us. I wanted to protect her, wanted to say nothing, wanted to keep the fragile bubble of tension we'd created intact. But I knew it was slipping through my fingers like sand. She began, and then stopped, shaking her head, as if deciding against confession. I reached out, letting my hand rest lightly on her back, feeling her shiver under my touch. It was a small rebellion, a statement that I was here, that I wasn't going anywhere. Her breath hitched, and I realized, painfully, that the attraction between us wasn't just mutual, it was inevitable. He paused, eyes darting between us, suspicion sharpening into something heavier. "Maybe I should come back later," he said finally, voice clipped. But the threat lingered in the air, unspoken but undeniable. As he left, the door clicking shut behind him, the room felt smaller, tighter. Our proximity was suffocating in the best and worst ways, our shared heartbeat a reminder that every touch, every glance, carried consequences now. She looked up at me, lips parted slightly, chest rising and falling rapidly. "We can't," she whispered. And yet, as I closed the distance, our foreheads almost touching, I knew that line, the line of what we were allowed, was meaningless the moment our hands met again, holding each other like the world outside had no claim on us at all. I couldn't stop staring at her. Every line in her face, every tremor in her hands, every quiver in her voice felt like it was meant for me, and it terrified me. This wasn't a movie, wasn't some neat story where things worked out because they were supposed to. This was raw, messy, impossible. "I can't do this," she whispered, shaking her head, though her eyes didn't leave mine. It's too much." And I understood, even as my chest ached. Too much for what? For her past? For me? For the rules the world had silently set around us? I didn't care. I couldn't. You can, I said, voice low, but urgent. You can, because I trailed off, the words failing me in the way that only truth can. I reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. Not yet. Her gaze softened, trembled, then hardened again with the weight of everything we hadn't said. I'm scared, she admitted finally. The confession landed like a stone, heavy, real, and I wanted to cradle it, to protect it, to erase the fear entirely. I know, I said, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. But I'm not scared of this. Not us. Not anymore. She laughed, a shaky, breathless sound that made my chest constrict. You don't even know what this means, she said, voice catching. Not just us, everything. The judgment, the whispers, the what-ifs. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Words weren't enough. So I leaned in, just slightly, letting our foreheads touch, letting my hand rest lightly against hers. The warmth of her skin sent a shock through me, the simple physicality of it enough to erase the noise in my head. I don't care, I said finally, heart hammering. I want this. I want you. Even if it's messy. Even if it's impossible. Her breath hitched. I could feel the hesitation, the self-protective walls, the careful restraint she had built around herself for decades. And yet, in that tiny, suspended heartbeat, she let them falter. Just a little. She didn't kiss me. I didn't kiss her. Not yet. But the space between us felt charged, alive, irreversible. It wasn't about perfect timing or neat endings, it was about acknowledgement, about choice, about finally admitting that desire, connection, and care mattered more than fear. I can't promise it will be easy, she whispered, voice trembling, but there was a strength in it too. But I want to try. My chest lifted with a relief so deep I could barely breathe. That try was enough. Enough to collapse the distance between us without breaking it entirely. Enough to leave the story unfinished but the hearts aligned. We stayed there, foreheads pressed together, hands entwined, breathing each other in. The world outside could wait. Everything else, judgment, consequences, fear, could wait. And in that quiet, messy, perfectly human moment, I realized something crucial: love wasn't neat. It wasn't safe. It was raw, complicated, terrifying, and entirely worth it. The doorbell rang again, distant this time, a reminder that the world still existed. We didn't move immediately. We just held each other, eyes closed, hearts open, choosing each other before anything else could intervene. The morning light spilled into her apartment in soft, gold streaks. I watched her across the kitchen table, a mug clutched between her hands, eyes half-lidded with sleep and something else, something warmer, steadier. The tension from yesterday had softened into something fragile but unbreakable. I made coffee, she said, voice quiet, casual, but it wasn't casual. It carried the weight of every unspoken word, every confession, every risk we'd taken together. I smiled, swallowing the lump in my throat. You didn't have to, I said, though the truth was, she had to. She needed to show me normalcy, safety, and somehow I needed it too. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that felt good, not awkward. My hand found hers across the table without thinking. She didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed gently, her thumb brushing mine, a subtle confirmation that the choice we'd made, the messy, impossible, reckless choice, wasn't a mistake. She looked at me then, fully, the way she had the first day I'd walked into her life, but now with an openness that made my chest ache. I was so scared, she admitted, voice low, almost a whisper. Not of you. Of me. Of losing control of everything I'd built around myself. I nodded, understanding. I know, I said. And I don't want to erase that, or pretend it doesn't exist. But I want to be in it, with you. Her lips quirked into the faintest smile, the one I'd memorized months ago, the one that made the world feel right even when everything outside it didn't. Then I guess, we'll just have to be brave, she said. We laughed softly, that delicate, shared sound that belonged only to us. No one else mattered right then, the judgments, the whispers, the age gap, the mistakes of the past. Everything that had seemed so daunting yesterday felt smaller today, because we had chosen each other anyway. There was no dramatic declaration, no cinematic kiss to end it all. Just a quiet, steady knowing, a gentle intimacy that spoke volumes. We were together, for better or worse, and the rest would unfold as it would. I leaned closer, resting my forehead against hers. The room hummed with the comfort of normalcy, yet beneath it lay something electric, unspoken, and real. A story that had been tentative, messy, and fragile now had its foundation. I don't know what tomorrow looks like, I said softly. She smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear. Neither do I. But, we'll figure it out. Together. And just like that, the fear, the guilt, the longing, the impossible odds, all of it, melted into something alive, present, and ours. We stayed like that, suspended in the simple perfection of choosing each other, knowing life wouldn't be neat, but it would be ours. Would we stumble again? Would the world remind us of the lines we crossed? Would love be enough? I didn't have answers. Only her hand in mine, her heartbeat next to mine, and the quiet certainty that, for now, we had made it. And sometimes, that's everything.